mshikamano hatima yetu, tujitoe wenyewe kupambana pamoja, uhuru na umoja vitawale. Enyi bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote na tujibidishe kutoa kilicho bora kwa Afrika, chimbuko la wanadamu, chemchemi ya utamaduni, tumaini letu wakati wa mafarakano. Enyi bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima.
You are watching us live at Humans TV Africa. We are Humans TV Africa, and the studio is Dennis Bongole. My name is Katom Kasa. We are a registered charity media organization that does work in several countries in the world. And so far we have offices in Uganda, Kenya. We have offices, call them studios, in Nigeria and Ghana. We have offices in Zambia, Zimbabwe, Sierra Leone, UK, and of course USA. We are working as a charity organization that does media work. Now, we want to encourage you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Facebook, TikTok, and of course website. Our name is Humans TV Africa. Now, welcome again to yet a beautiful edition, beautiful day. We are going to be talking about Africa, and of course the program is called Country Profiles. Today, we talk about Gambia. It's called the Gambia. Now, do you know that until the 19th century, Gambia was not known as Gambia, but Senegambia. Senegal and Gambia were one, that used to be called Senegambia. And where did they get the name Gambia? From River Gambia. But of course, it goes back to the 15th century when the Portuguese actually identified it and labeled them as such. Now, the Portuguese, the French, the British, all of them have had interest in this country, of course, including the Dutch. In this country today we call the Gambia. Let us have a look at the Gambia and see what makes it special. Now, that is the map of the Gambia, a very beautiful map of the Gambia. Gambia, by the way, has only not even 3 million people. It's a very small country. Of course, Gambia has a lovely map, red, blue, and green. Of course, we normally say red is for the blood, green the hope, white, again, the flourishing country right there, and of course, green is our vegetation and the people in Africa. It's the life. Now, when you look at the map of Africa, you will know that Gambia, of course, is in West Africa. The South Atlantic Ocean is not very far away from the Gambia there. And of course, Gambia became an in thing because of that ocean. And of course, from the 15th century going onwards, Gambia was very important because of slavery. In fact, it's said that thousands of slaves were picked from Gambia. If you watch the film, The Roots, a man called Kunta Kinte, fictional character, of course, we trace these slaves from the Gambia. If you have watched The Roots, an American movie where we have Kunta Kinte was a Gambian. And then we traced about 5,000 slaves that came from Gambia to go in the Caribbean, to go in the Americas, and of course to go in the United Kingdom to be slaves. Now, Gambia has a history, of course, of supplying slaves to the rest of the world, the history of the coast, which is proximity to the, of course, the ocean, which made it easier to traffic human beings. And of course, Gambia, in terms of weather, in terms of resources, we can say that Gambia is largely based on agriculture. We also note that River Gambia is the earliest source of West African slaves. Gambia there became a very big thing. Of course, they were taken to do mining in Mexico, Caribbean, of course, the US, and all these others, as we know them today, between the 17th to the 18th centuries. Of course, I told you about Punta Kite, born around 1750, taken to Gambia, where they became slaves. And of course, we know that the British West Africa, Gambia was administered as the British West Africa between 1821 to 1843. The British West Africa took over Gambia. So the British were in charge of Gambia between 1821 to 1843. And of course, it became a colony and was under its own governor until in 1866. And of course, Gambia was again returned to to be governed by a governor who was based in Freetown, Sierra Leone, as it would be until 1888. Gambia was, of course, under the British Empire for a long time. Of course, became a colony for almost 200 years. For almost 200 years, it was a colony under the British. Of course, we know that Gambia later on got their independence one day. It was created, the first presidency. We will see them in 1970, but earlier on, 1965, they'd been able to declare themselves as at least an independent nation now. When you look at these maps going on the screen, we see exactly what makes Gambia special now in terms of population, in terms of people within this country, the region. Remember, I told you that Gambia is such a small country, one of the smallest in the world, so small that it has not even 3 million people. It's quite very small a country there as Gambia. And of course, Banjul, the capital right there. We see Kariwani, we see Jaina, and the others. Now, in terms of population, actual population is actually 2.7 million people, 2,700,000 people in Gambia. And in terms of population per kilometer, is only 239 there. Life expectancy in Gambia is 60. And of course, for females, it's 63. Birth rate is quite high at 33. And death rate is also threatening at 7 right there. Males to female, and they are more female to male, 50 to 49 in terms of calculations right there. Now, Gambia also is known for their vast languages. Remember that Gambians, as we are going to be seeing, many of Gambians actually have been part of the Islamic culture. Now, the Malinke as the main language there, the Bambara, the Fur, the Wolof, the Yola, Soninke, and others. Now, Gambia, Senegal have so much in similar. Remember, it was called Senegambia. They were together. And of course, today, we know we have Gambia, and of course, we have Senegal. Now, in terms of languages, those are the leading languages. Let us look at other statistics very fast about Gambia there. Now, in terms of GDP, Gambia is a poor country. One of the poorest countries in the world, sadly, is Gambia. And the GDP is quite low, honestly. 2.1 billion US dollars. This is so small a GDP. A GDP of $2 billion. No, this is so small. Now, exportation, Gambia has not much to export, I should tell you. And as you can see, they're exporting they earn about $267 million in exports, yet importations is $829 million. Now, you can imagine, how do you export goods worth $267 million and then you import goods worth $829 million? Now, this is the problem of Africa. I want people to note that we import so much, we spend so much of our money to foreign goods, to Chinese, to Europeans, and elsewhere, to American goods, European goods, Chinese goods, Asian goods. Now, we spend so much of our resources importing than exporting. Now, this is why Gambia is poor. Don't even ask any other question. GDP is 2 billion. Now, look at their importations. Look at what they import and look at what they export. Now, this country is perpetually poor. And now look at unemployment, for example. Look at tourism. In fact, tourism is doing better at $67 million. annually. Now, the debt rate is even high. Look at a country's debt rate. If you want to understand the economy of a country, look at their debt burden. 83% of the GDP is quite high. Now, Gambia cannot sustain the economy. Look at their debt rate. 83% of the GDP is in the debt. Now, unemployment at 4.7% is threatening. Inflation is even high at 11, almost 12%. Corruption index, very bad. Corruption index, very bad. Energy consumption, quite high. Now, these are the problems of African nations. Poor leadership, corruption, and too much importation, if you ask me. Now, due to its political and financial situation, Gambia is considered one of the least developed countries in the world and is also one of the heavily indebted poor countries in the world. With an average annual income of $800 only, is one of the low-income countries in the world. Even taking purchasing power parity into account, Gambia is still one of the poorest countries in the world. This is bad. This stat is bad. The statistics here are quite terrible. Let's look at other facts about Gambia. Now, in terms of land use, you can imagine 4% of the land use is urban. Of course, 60% good enough is into agriculture. Did I tell you that Gambia does well in terms of agriculture? Yes, Gambia does well in terms of agriculture, cashew nuts and others. Yes, actually, Gambia has maize, has groundnuts. Yes, they are more into agriculture. If you ask me, what are Gambians exporting? More into agriculture. Of course, forests take about 24% of the land, which is also good. Water takes a bit of a big chunk also at 10% water areas. And of course, others there cover that gap. Now, that's Gambia in terms of statistics of this country. Now we move on to look at other things of Gambia. Of course, if you ask me, the capital is Banjul. Banjul, it has 31,000 people. Bakama, Western, it's in the western, it has 78. And of course, Bakau, which is also within Banjul area, has 43. Now, these are the main cities: Farafeni, Lamini, Sukuta, Basasanta, Su, Gunja, and of course, Soma, Sabi, Basanga, and others. Let's move on to know more about Gambia in a minute. Of course, I've told you that Gambia stability is average. Death penalty is allowed in Gambia. Yes, they can kill you. Death penalty is actually allowed in Gambia. Now, in terms of minerals, I told you Gambia has clay, Gambia has laterite, Gambia has sand and gravel, silica sand, and of course zircon. Gambia doesn't have much in terms of minerals. I should tell you, I should warn you. But of course, Gambia exports, three main exports of Gambia. Of course, peanuts, fish, and cotton. Now, in terms of alliances, who is Gambia allied to? Gambia is part of COMESA. Gambia is part of ECOWAS. Gambia is part of African Union. Gambia is part of the National Allied Movement. Gambia is part of the Commonwealth of Nations. Gambia is part of OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Remember, many of them are Muslims anyway. So they are part of the Muslim community right there. Gambia is part of the UN, UNESCO, and the World Trade Organization. I told you that Gambia's main exports are three: peanuts, fish, and cotton. Now, ask me why this country is poor. Yes, you know, even their exports actually weak. Now, these are photos from the city Banjul, and of course other cities of Gambia. It's a beautiful place. I love trees. I love the green in the cities. Of course, it's a bit old. The poverty, you can see it on the iron sheets right there. These are old buildings, of course. We take these photos and share with you to show you how Gambia looks like. Of course, it's lovely, lovely. Many Muslims in Gambia, as I told you, just like Senegal, they share a lot of culture, a lot of influence from their historical backgrounds and all that, and all that. And of course, Gambia is among the least developed countries. Of course, this is their international airport. Quite lovely, their entrance. Yeah, you can see ladies, students, and everyone in Gambia. Those are the Gambian people right there. It's a low-income country. The Gambian economy, one person there, about 70% of Gambians live below the poverty line, about 70%. live below the poverty line. And Gambia has been having challenges, honestly, for a long time in terms of economy, though politically it hasn't been so much under trouble. Gambia has, of course, beautiful villages, the traditional of Africa, the lovely huts there, the beautiful women right there in Gambia, and of course, the pressure industry is also going forward, doing very well in terms of Gambia's economy right there. And we've seen that Gambians, in terms of politics, Gambians have been ruled since their independence, from 1965 to 1970. They have been ruled by a number of presidents, about three. The first one was Dauda Jawara, who ruled from 1970 to 1994. Then Yahya Jammeh seized power in a bloodless coup that year, 1994, and took on until 2017 when Adama Barrow defeated Jammeh in elections. Now, Gambia has wild animals. You have been seeing them. Quite a number of beautiful animals and birds can be seen in the Gambia. Of course, the leopards that climb trees, the giraffes, the elephants, and all that. These are animals that you can see in Gambia. Gambia has all these animals. Remember, they have a stretch of forest, they have a stretch of land, which is good. Of course, Gambia has some of the best beaches, the best resorts right there in Gambia. When you go there as a tourist, trust me, you'll have a good time. They have a good weather, they have good hotels, and of course, they have happy people. Adama Barrow is the president of Gambia since 2016, 2017. He took over from Jammeh, defeating Jammeh. Remember, Jammeh took over. Jammeh took over from Dauda Jawara, 1994. Jammeh took over power and a bloodless coup. And of course, then later on, 2016 elections, December elections, Barrow, that man, Adama Barrow, defeated Jammeh and became a president in 2017. From 2017, they have this guy for president. The man is called Adamawa Barrow, right there. So that is Gambia in a brief. Lovely country, beautiful people right there. And of course, a lovely coastline, lovely coastline, lovely people, a bit peaceful. Gambia has had only three presidents since 1917. There was a bloodless coup when Dawada was removed by Jammeh. Then Jammeh went into presidential elections in 2016 December. He was defeated. He gave up power. Yes, Gambia is another example of a peaceful country. If you may ask me, in terms of democracy, yes, they haven't been having violence in terms of shooting people because of politics. Gambia has allowed people to talk. People actually talk in Gambia. The radios are free to talk. The press is actually free to give information to people. People generally live their life in Gambia. They are few. They are less than 3 million people. We have seen 2.7 million people in Gambia. It's a small stretch, yes, but a lovely country with beaches, with the sand, and of course with their food. They have all the food you may think about in the tropics. They have the animals, they have the beaches. Why not go to Gambia and really see what's happening in Gambia? They don't have so much of they don't have so much of the minerals, but nevertheless, it remains a beautiful country. So I want to encourage you to please keep on checking on Human Study Africa, keep on subscribing, and watch more of our other shows. See you in the next one.